No one was.
They don't even search. They don't even look. His rights were completely ignored. He was serving his country, and his rights were absolutely ignored, which is still legal today.
Yeah.
Can you believe that? I mean, that's...
Unfortunately,
yeah,
yes.
we can believe that, can't we? We're just going to go ahead and have a little chuckle.
Hey there, it's Melissa Brunetti, and welcome to the Mind Your Own Karma podcast.
Hey there, Karma Crew. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Mind Your Own Karma, the Adoption Chronicles. Today I have Lorah Gerald on the show. She is a passionate advocate for adoptees and a certified trauma-informed Kundalini yoga instructor and Reiki master. As a baby scoop era, same race, domestic pre-row adoptee, Lorah draws from her lived experiences to support others on their journeys. She leads the Adoptee Connect Tulsa group and founded the Adopted Chameleons, a private community on Facebook for adoptees and those with similar experiences. There, she facilitates monthly art therapy and body doubling sessions. Lorah is actively involved in Oklahoma's Steering and Implementation Committee for Adoption and Foster Care, collaborating with agencies, adoptive parents, social workers, and therapists to improve mental health care for adoptees and former foster youth. She shares her insights and personal story through podcasts, blogs, and social media as the Adopted Chameleon, reaching a wider audience to foster understanding and healing. With a commitment to personal and collective growth, Lorah believes that when we heal ourselves, we heal the world. Connect with her on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter to join the conversation. Here is my conversation with Lorah Gerald. So we are welcoming Lorah back to the show. She's been on the show before, aka Adopted Chameleon. Welcome, welcome.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah. So, the reason I do the show is for education, and there's some things that people don't think about. I didn't even think about as an adoptee, and something that you had to go through recently, and it just really made me think about how to navigate that in the future. So I'm hoping that you have some insight on that, and just thank you for sharing your story. So I just want to touch on your adoption story a little bit. So if you can just kind of, in a nutshell, take us back to that. I know you've been on the show before and you went into it a little bit deeper then, but let's kind of touch back on it now.
Okay, my name's Lorah Gerald. I'm the Adopted Chameleon on social media. I was in reunion with my first biological family member 5 years ago, and those are my biological siblings, my two sisters by my mother. And then I met my father 3 years ago. So that's how I am in reunion. I'm a domestic, same race adoptee, baby scoop era. And what else would you like to know?
Tell us how the dynamic was when you met your biological parents. Obviously, your biological mother knew that you were adopted, but your biological father did not. So just kind of tell us about that.
All right. My mother ignored me my whole life. So I never got to meet my mother. And she didn't name the father on the birth certificate. And once I found him, I found out that he never knew. So I was a complete secret to one side of my family. During reunion also, I wanted to jump ahead just for a second because he told me that he would have kept me. And this baby scoop era, a lot of that happened. So a lot of people didn't know, and families were separated that maybe not necessarily needed to be separated, because that's something that people instantly assume with adoptees. They'll sit there and think that we were abused or with people that couldn't take care of us. And it was quite the opposite in my case. My parents were in college. It's that story. They were in college and he got sent off to a war. And then 9 months later, I came along. And that's a lot of the baby scoop era, especially in the 60s.
Yeah. So he didn't know anything about you. Was he listed on your birth certificate or was somebody else on your birth
No,
certificate?
no, no one was. They didn't,
No
I,
one was.
they don't even search. They don't even look. His rights were completely ignored. He was serving his country and his rights were absolutely ignored, which is still legal today.
Yeah,
Can
that's
you believe
crazy.
that? I mean, that's,
I unfortunately,
yeah, we
yes.
can. We can believe that, can't we? We're just going to go ahead and have a little chuckle.
Right. All you can do is laugh.
Yeah.
So how did you contact him? How did you end up finding him? And how did he react when he found out about you?
Okay, this is a little bit of a tale. I'm going to take us on a story, a little journey here.
Once
So,
upon a time.
once upon a time in adoption land, yes, after I met my sisters, I had already done DNA and I couldn't find anybody. So that's what was going on is back in, I want to say 2016, maybe I started doing DNA and I didn't find anybody but a cousin. And this cousin, she told me all about the family. She was like a third cousin. She sent me this cute little message on 23andMe. Hi, cousin. Because in my bio, I said, I'm adopted. I'm trying to find my family. And she was like, let me tell you about the family. And she starts telling me about the family. And I was all excited. And the more I read, I was like, wow, this doesn't sound anything like me. You know, I was looking for answers. Where was I in there? Who is the true me? Nothing like me. So it was a huge letdown. Anyway, I just felt drawn to this woman, though. Obviously, we had the same DNA, so there was something there. So it was like, I don't know, a year or so of we chatted through Messenger on 23andMe a few times. Well, one day she messaged me and she goes, you have to go do Ancestry. Guess what? I'm adopted. She didn't know she was adopted. But we had the right DNA. So that family she told me about wasn't my family, wasn't even her family. They were the people that lied to her for 50 years. So upon her DNA discovery and ancestry, she found her father and her brother. So I did the DNA and there they were, her brother, her father, her. I found another cousin. And it was strong match. So especially her father, I was matched stronger with her father. So we realized that this was my dad's side, not my mom's side.
Wow.
Yeah. So at that point, I had some people to ask questions to, like, because I had non-identifying information. You know, that lovely non-identifying information. Did you get yours? Did you get non-identifying or identifying?
No, I had no information, just the non-identifying.
Okay, so non-identifying. So yeah, I was like, do y'all know a guy that would have been born this year, you know, would have gone to college maybe in this state, you know, had maybe this blonde hair and blue eyes. Yeah, so they're just kind of like, wow, that's, you know, really vague. But luckily, since I was related to them, they narrowed it down. That's how I found out. Like I said, I'm getting to the story.
At least they were helpful.
Yeah. Come to find out, her dad and my dad hung out. So this was the right information because I wrote a letter. I did one of those little, you know, find a person things and looked the name up in the state that I thought he was in. And sure enough, there was a hit. So I was like, that's got to be him. So I sent a letter, didn't hear anything. And then I went and got some information from Search Angels. They gave me some free advice. They, you know, they were like, you know, send it certified, you know, so that you'll know somebody picked it up. Send it to a PO box if you got it. And I just happened to have a PO box, so that's what I did. And I noticed someone picked it up, so I was hopeful. Yay!
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Someone's going to contact me since my mother didn't. And a year went by, and I was like, oh well, neither of my parents wanted to know me, you know. Whoa. Wow. You know, therapy, who can I talk to? You know, all of those things that adoptees go through when we have double rejection.
Yeah.
And, but it wasn't. I got an email one night I'm sitting on the couch just checking emails, and there's an email from someone asking me if I'm still looking for the man that I'd sent the letter to. And I said, yeah. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to jump right on in here. And I explained why.
Yeah.
I think he might be my dad. I'm trying to find him. I'm
Oh,
adopted. I was like, you got nothing to lose at this point, right? Just dive on in. And luckily, this beautiful, kind soul on the other end said, oh my God, yes, let me help you get in touch with him. He had, they found him on the floor, and he had had multiple strokes, and he was pretty much a goner. And that had been 2 months before I had mailed that letter.
Oh.
Yeah, so 2 months before he could have passed. But luckily, life-saving measures were brought into place, and he lived. They were like, we don't know how. We really don't. This one was like, they thought he was going to be completely brain dead if he was brought back. But no, he had a whole year, and he was in a nursing home talking. He still had some cognition issues and a little paralysis on one side, but yeah, he was there. And she got me in contact with, guess who? My biological sister. Yep, because she had his power of attorney, to see who could get to him and not. And I needed DNA evidence, even though I was pretty sure now. So I contacted her and said, hey, we might be sisters. Can I send you a DNA kit? Nothing like contacting a stranger going, I'm just going to send you a little DNA kit. Do you mind spitting in a tube?
Right.
Oh, yeah. So luckily, she was another kind soul, and she did. She spit in the tube, and the other kind soul ended up being my stepsister, and that kind soul ended up being my sister on my father's side. And that's how I found out that that was my father, because him being in a nursing home, it would have been next to impossible to get his DNA. So I needed hers. And that's how we found each other. I went to the state he was in, went to the nursing home, met him, showed him a picture of my mom, and the look on his face, I was like, yeah, they were a couple. And that's what he told me. They dated in college he was like, I don't remember, maybe a year. He remembers going to her hometown, meeting her parents. And yeah.
Wow. So can you share with us how your relationship with him developed in the time that you had together?
Well, I got to see him. I only knew him for 3 years. He passed this year. So most of it was through video chat. When the nursing home didn't forget about me.
Oh boy.
That seemed to happen a whole lot. And I never once got to talk to him during Christmas because, there were too many things going on. And why would it be important for someone to have a video chat with their family members? So I got pushed to the side. But I guess they were doing the best they can. They were probably understaffed, I just had to have patience, but because he couldn't hold a phone. That was the reason why the video chat was so important. We tried the handheld phone device. He couldn't because he couldn't hold it. So he's trying to hold it with his shoulder, and it fell, and it was over with because then he couldn't get it.
Yeah.
So hard. And it ebbed and flowed because sometimes I don't know if he knew who I was. Especially when he wrote me letters, it seemed like he might have been thinking about somebody else. But when we were face to face, he seemed to always fully know who I was. And he would tell me he loved me and how beautiful I was. And, that meant a lot. And he would tell me stories about the family. And that meant a lot.
Yeah. Did you ever feel the need or desire to legally establish your connection with him at any time?
It would have been nice. And had the relationship been able to have maybe a little bit more time, I might have brought the topic up again. With the way he was at that point, I just didn't know how much to push it. But I'm sure that had we had a little bit more time. Yeah.
I never have thought about having to do that. until hearing your story. So kind of walk us through what happened there at the end, when he really fell ill, and just tell us what happened there.
Well, I still don't know fully what happened. I got a message from the nursing home, and they needed to send him to the emergency room for a scan. And I was like, I mean, I wanted to just say yes, but I knew if I legally did that and something happened, I don't legally have the rights to say. So I got in touch with my sister and said, hey, can you get in touch with the nursing home like immediately? He needs to go have some kind of scan done. And he did. He went and had the scan. I heard through her, because now the nursing home would no longer talk to me at all. So this is where it's really important. If you don't have some kind of legal aspect document that says that you can speak to your biological family, go get it now. Look into that, get an attorney, whatever you got to do, ask somebody, because I had no more contact with them from that point on. My sister contacted me and said, hey, he's fine. He went back to the nursing home. So that was the last thing I heard, that he was fine. He was back there. And then I want to say it was 24 hours after that, I got a text from her early in the morning, and I said, well, this can't be good, because she doesn't really talk to me. I mean, not that she's rejected me, but she's busy. She's busy. So sure enough, they found him dead. So we don't know what happened. They said he was fine. It's what she told me, that he was fine. He was talking. The scan and everything that they needed to do had been taken care of, and they just don't know what happened.
So did the nursing home think that you were his daughter and like legally you could say something, and then you kind of told them that's not the case, or how'd they find out?
Well, they knew I was his biological daughter, because when I first went there, I kind of explained that, I'm his biological daughter. I'd been put up for adoption. I never got into the legalities there. Honestly, I think they just assume. I don't think people understand that we don't have the same rights. And it's not just something we're saying on social media or on podcasts and articles and blogs, on and on, droning on and on about that. I think people honestly believe that we have the same rights as anyone else, and we do not.
Yeah.
So I think it was just lack of information, and I didn't share all of it because I had just flown there to see him. So I didn't want to say, hey, legally, I don't have any access to him.
Yeah.
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 And it's a good thing, because, I only had 3 years. So
yeah, I know. How did you cope with the grief of losing him, especially knowing that you couldn't really play a part in, or a role in those final decisions and things?
I'm still dealing with it. It's weird, because I was just getting to know him and to have him in my life, and then to lose him. It's just like this strange void of, it's almost dreamlike, or maybe I just disassociated, because, that's easy for an adoptee to do. And just tell myself, oh, I'll get to talk to him next month or something. So there's a lot of back and forth. The reality of him not being here, I'm not going to ever see him again, because I still haven't gone to where his ashes are placed. It took like 2 months for him to even be interred into a military cemetery. I mean, my sister had to literally battle the military for the rights that he was owed.
Yeah.
He was owed that. So it hurts so bad that his rights were ignored so many times in his life. And he came back from a war he didn't want to be in, didn't know he had a kid, that, another child had to fight for his rights. I mean, we just kind of assume that white men have all the rights, but there are some times when they don't.
Yeah.
And this is it. I found him. I found him the hard way, because he deserved those rights. He's a human being with feelings, and he showed me a few times by breaking down and crying and being human. And it's still difficult to talk about because I haven't made it there yet.
Yeah.
And I've found peace with it in the way that I can, but I know that once I actually get to go to his final resting place, it will be another part of it. And then I'll have to work on letting it go again, because it'll seem more real. Because right now, like I said, I can kind of disassociate and take myself out of it.
Right. Yeah. That's the kind of the last thing I need to do too with my birth father is go see that. And I keep saying, I'm going to do it next week. I'm going to do it next week. I don't think I'm ready to actually see that yet. So, but I will. I think that'll be the closure, the last little puzzle piece to that part of my puzzle. But yeah, I need to do that too.
Yeah.
And the other thing is I still can't understand how a legal document as a birth certificate that we use for a lot of things just isn't that important when it comes to adoptees. And you could just not put a birth father's name on there. You could put, Jane Doe and Jack, Smith, and that's it.
Right.
And a father it's okay for him not to know that he fathered a child. Like, it just blows my mind that that's okay.
Yeah.
It's totally legal.
Yeah. Let's just ignore people's human rights. But again, things that we talk about all the time, it's a human rights violation. No matter, that's the thing that people forget. It's not about being right, wrong, good, bad. It's a human right to know.
Not for us.
But unless you're adopted, or, donor conceived or something else that you don't legally have to tell anyone.
Yeah. Or someone's has
states
signed your rights away.
Yeah. Absolutely unbelievable in 2024 that adoptees just don't have the same rights.
I know. I think the same. How do you keep your birth father's memory alive? I mean, I know you say you're kind of disassociating, so, maybe just kind of not even totally accepting or realizing that he is, not here anymore. But what do you do to keep his memory alive?
Well, he told me stories of the family, and these are the synchronicities and the things that are in our nature that he told me about that were really cool. And I know that you've probably got some too, so I want you to share some after I share some, because this is important, because this goes against that blank slate theory that people think adoptees are, that it's a baby, you can just do with it whatever you want. We carry our ancestors in that DNA with us. We know this through epigenetics. You can carry the good and the bad. So those traumas are passed down, and we are connected to our ancestors. So nature plays a lot into us. Of course, nurture does help, but some of the synchronicities are, I knew my mother owned a place called the Knitting Basket. And I always thought that that's where I got my creativity from. Then when I met my father 3 years ago, I found out he was an engineer. He was studying to be an engineer in college before he got sent away. And it was him that I got it all from. Because I used to work as an interior designer before I was marketing manager. And one of the things that I could do is look at a pattern or something, and I can reverse engineer it. I can figure out how to create it from taking it apart. And I just thought that was just something everybody could do, because I didn't know my adopted parents couldn't do it, but I just thought, well, I didn't realize it was an innate talent that I had through DNA. I didn't get it because, I didn't know who I was, but this was something I've always been able to do. And he told me he could do the same exact thing. He made clothing that way. He was telling me he built lamps and a staircase. He actually built the house that he had that was taken away and sold because, you know, he was in a nursing home. Another part of him losing everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, the house he built. But I realized this with him. I was talking to him about it because if you all know anything about me, you know I love Halloween, and I have a 12-foot skeleton. And you know, if you have a 12-foot skeleton, it goes from Halloween through Christmas because that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. So I wanted to put a costume on my 12-foot skeleton. This was before I knew other people were doing it. I thought I was the first, but I wasn't. So I thought, what would be the best Christmas costume for an adoptee? Elf, right?
Yeah.
Of course it's elf. So I looked at the costume and came up with how I could make that for a 12-foot skeleton. And I did it. So there's videos of me with a 12-foot skeleton.
Yes.
Then the following year, they came up with a little mini 3-foot skeleton. And then I did it again. So I have a 12-foot and a 3-foot elf costume for my skeletons. And yes, they go up at Christmas time. But during that time, it was like discovery with him. So that's why I wanted to share that, because it's near and dear to my heart. That's a way that I do hold him, because after Halloween, I'll be putting that costume back on the skeletons, and I will be thinking about him when I do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I was an interior designer, and all the years I worked as an interior designer, and I still use this skill. I can touch fabric and pretty much know the content in it. So I can tell good quality fabric through my fingertips, through tactile touch. Especially if you're going thrifting or something, I can just touch because there's a lot of stuff to look through, so I can't look at everything. I just kind of go through and touch. When I hit something I like, I pull it out and see if it's right. But he was telling me that I have an uncle, great uncle. Oh, now I can't remember. Anyway, it's an uncle, and he was a vice president of a textile company in New York City. And he could do that because my dad knew when he got married, he said my uncle came and, like, you know, touched his collar and was straightening him. And he was like, oh, this is good fabric, and was telling him what the content was of his tuxedo. And I said, are you kidding me? I said, that was another thing I just assumed people could do. Because I didn't know any different. But no, it was a trait I got from my dad's side of the family. I can touch fabric and know what it is.
Wow.
So every time I'm shopping now, I know where I got that because he told me that story.
Yeah. Well, it's just like a baby chick knows how to pick its way out of an egg, you know, when it comes time. That's DNA that's carried in that chick from generations and generations.
Right.
And, you know, they didn't learn that. They just have it in their DNA.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Did you look back and think, God, I should have had this kind of conversation, or I should have asked, you know, something, or did you have any of that?
Yeah, the regret part. Yeah. Yeah. I try not to think about it too much because I have so much regret with my birth mother, and it just brings it up. So there's nothing I can do about it at this point. And if I didn't ask in the 3 years, you know, that's kind of, I guess, my fault, right?
Do you feel him ever around you, or you sense him?
It's funny that you ask that, because I have a window right here out of my office that I look out of. There's trees and birds, my hummingbird feeders out there and stuff. And I'm on the second floor, so I'm looking at kind of the tops of the trees. There was a red cardinal out there.
Oh, wow.
Right before I started the video with you. And I said, hey, Dad.
Yeah, that question's not on my list, but I just felt like I needed to ask it.
You listened to your intuition, didn't you? Now,
Yeah, my synchronicity
you a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to hear, do you have a synchronicity story?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I love these. I love these.
That is my synchronicity stories. You know, I grew up being very sensitive to spirit, and grew up kind of, was kind of scared and nervous because I didn't know what it was. And then, I met my birth mother and we're sitting at the dinner table with her two young sons and her husband at the time. And I just said, do you ever have, do you ever sense things, And she just kind of looked at me and she's like, we'll talk later. And so, yeah, we sensed the same way. And then when I met my sisters on my birth father's side, they're also sensitive too. But we've all kind of got different sensitivities. And I always thought that'd be such a cool show if the three of us got together,
Oh my
the three of us,
gosh.
because we're all kind of different. And we all have different moms, same dad. But yeah, I have that sensitivity on both sides. And then just, the way I laugh and some of the way I move and stuff like that, definitely on the maternal side was weird to see that mirroring. I was like, that's so weird. So weird. And me and my birth mother went and looked at some houses because at one point we were thinking about moving there. And the realtor opened the door to this two-story house, and there was a flight of stairs right in front of me. And I saw a spirit of a man. I could see the guy standing on the stairs. And she could see my reaction, the realtor, and she was like, now she's scared to go in. I didn't tell her what I saw. But so anyway, so we walked through the house, and on the way back, we were driving. It's dark now, and I was telling my birth mother, I saw this guy. This is what he looked like, and she ended up sending me a paper clipping of the man that lived there, and it was the guy that I saw on the stairs. But as we were driving back to her house, we're driving under streetlights, and as we drove under the streetlights, they would go out one by one as we went under them, and that happens to me all the time, electricity. And I freaked my birth mother out. She was freaking out. And I was laughing hysterically because I mean, I'm used to this, right?
Yeah.
She was like, oh my God, what's happening? She was like freaking out. But we were giggling and laughing and like having the best time with just, sharing that part of you because there's not a lot of people you can talk to about that, right?
Right.
That understands or doesn't get freaked out about it. And so that was just fun. We had a good time. So yeah,
Oh,
those are my
yeah.
synchronicities.
I love that. Yeah, I found out that I had it on my father's side and mother's side, and my adoptive mother was
Oh,
so she
wow.
was the one that allowed me to grow and develop it from little kid. She was just like,
Wow.
oh, that's completely normal. That's completely
That's
normal.
awesome. That's
So
awesome.
that was one thing she did very well. I like to give
Yeah.
her credit for that. She
Yeah.
did make me feel comfortable with it. Now, she also said, don't talk about that.
Yeah.
Just keep your mouth quiet, little girl.
Yeah.
Hush your mouth. Because I asked a lot of questions as a kid. She would be like, mm-mm, mm-mm.
There was a time when we knew how to heal ourselves. Western medicine has its place, but they've made us forget our own power. With Somatic Mindful Guided Imagery, you can discover how to reconnect, restore, and heal from within. Take control of your healing journey. The power is already inside of you. SomaticHealingJourneys.com.
So, have you found any ways to heal a little bit? What's helped you kind of get through this with your dad?
Well, knowing that I'm not alone, because the adoptee community, we have similar pains and woes, losses and griefs, same traumas. And that's always helpful, being in community
Mhm.
with people that understand, because you don't have to start at the beginning and explain and
Yeah.
well, you're adopted and everything wonderful. Well, what makes you think that we don't have normal lives like everyone else?
Yeah.
And plus, all of the
Yeah.
secrecy
Plus.
and lies, to begin with, and then you have to find your authentic self. You're not born knowing your authentic self. So that's where you have to start, is once you come out of the fog. you have to go find your authentic self, and finding your authentic self, you have to know that you're not alone. So once you know you're not alone, then the authenticity comes, and the authenticity is difficult because you realize you were lied to a lot. And then you start not trusting yourself, your own mind, because you believed a lie for so long that you think, well, how can I trust anything? And then you got to learn to trust your intuition again. There's levels after levels, and it takes a daily practice. It really does. It takes something, just like eating and sleeping, which is something we're all supposed to do to be healthy and whole. We should do that every day. So if you're not doing that, try to do that every day. And somatic exercises, people think that they can talk their way out of things. You can't logically think your way out of a feeling. It just doesn't happen that way. And I am not poo-pooing on therapy. No, find yourself someone that you can talk to, and you talk and talk and talk and talk. Make sure it's someone that you feel safe with. So yes, absolutely. Cognitive therapy, coaching, things like this are so good, but you got to move too. So daily good mental health practices are going to come into play here. And I teach Kundalini yoga, so I like yoga, meditation, I love dancing, I love walking my dog, things like that, because you will be doing it every day. So find things to do every day that are going to bring you that joy and that movement that's going to help your nervous system relax. And the more you relax that nervous system, the more that you're going to grow. And when the uncomfortable time comes, because that's where we grow, is in that.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes, I know. Unfortunately, yes. And our brain's going to want to be comfortable, whether it's good for us or not. So learn to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, and allow yourself to grow. If you got to cry, that's fine. That's your body naturally releasing. Yes. That's why people cry in yoga. Everybody's like, you're not standing on the mountaintop, with the breeze blowing and everything's beautiful. Yeah. No, you release on there. Sometimes you got to cry. Sometimes it is that beautiful breeze, but sometimes it's crying, and both are beautiful because those are moments that you need so bad. Anger too. Yeah. Guess what? You definitely can get angry during meditation and yoga, because that's what you need. Anger is protecting a part of you that is hidden. It's saying there's something still down here. So again, having those somatic experiences, like what you do, you can get people down to those places. I want to hear a little bit about that too, because this is leading into what you do too.
The Somatic Mindful Guided Imagery, it's kind of like what you were saying. I always feel like, cognitive therapy definitely has its place. I have somebody, if I need to go, I have somebody to go to. And that kind of helps bring some things to the surface sometimes. But I always find that it's not getting to the root of the problem. Cognitive therapy is more left brain thinking, trying to think through something, and somatic is right brain. Feeling into the body, getting to the root of what's really going on, of those things that are hidden. And somatic therapy, I've been hearing it over and over and over, that it is great for pre-verbal trauma because we don't remember it. So there's implicit memories that will get to those implicit memories. And I always say, I kind of want to know what you think about adoptees who are afraid to open Pandora's box, afraid to take the lid off because they are keeping the lid on right now, barely, but they're able to get through a day. But what happens when I take that lid off and want to look at this stuff, or, I just want to say that it's so worth it going through the healing process and having short-term pain to alleviate the long-term suffering that you've been suffering all this time. It's totally worth it. And if something comes up in your awareness, you're ready to deal with it. Just trust the process. You don't have to. You don't have to. But I am telling you that that's what I've learned. That's what I've seen in my clients. When it comes up, it's ready to be looked at. It's not going to go away. It is not going to go away. You can turn the volume up on your TV and pretend like you don't hear that part of you yelling and screaming, trying to get your attention,
Yeah.
but it's still yelling and screaming.
Yes.
And pretty soon it's going to get louder. It's going to make you sick, either physically, mentally, both. It's not going to go away. And so, yeah, you need to look at it. So what do you think about people that are afraid? What would you say to people that are afraid to look at the pain and try the healing process?
Yeah, you said it. Our mind is going to allow us to go through the memories and the feelings that we can. We're not going to be sent something that we can't handle. People ask me all the time, afraid of Kundalini yoga because they've heard of Kundalini energy or Kundalini awakening or whatever. And there can be a huge rush, just like emotions, just like energy, but you're ready for it. Can it be scary? Yes. But it is a normal process. And if you remember normal, when you're scared, this is normal. Just don't resist, because there's only one way. There's only one way, and that is through. You've got to go through it. If you're trying to go around and you're resisting, you're just going to keep coming back to that same path, and you're going to face it again over and over, or you're going to start getting disease. You're going to start having unhealthy coping mechanisms. That's what happens. That's how we get depression, anxiety, addictions, things that we think we're fine, but we're actually not. We're not dealing with it.
We're good at that, though.
Oh,
I'm fine.
yes, because we want to be comfortable. That's what our brains are meant to do, keep us comfortable, whether it's good for us or not. So when those things start coming, and it will sometimes feel like a lot, you have people to talk to. Be surrounded by people that you feel safe to talk to. Go to the somatic experiences. It's going to help to be grounded. Grounding is going to make you feel safe and secure. It's going to affect that first chakra. Your root chakra is your safety and security. So you're going to want to start, just like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you're going to want to start square one. So get grounded, feel safe, feel secure. Your nervous system will instantly start regulating once you feel safe and secure. Then, just like everything else, you're going to work your way right on up in there. Adoptees specifically, when I'm working with them with energy or with yoga, it seems like the root and the solar plexus, which is our third, it's yellow, it's our core, that's our personal power. Those are the two that we usually need to work with the first. We got to start at the grounding, and then we're going to start making you fearless, pushing the fear out, working the core, building your personal fire. If you can get these two going, it's going to be so much easier than if you're just completely not grounded and have a weak core. Things can just go in spiraling motions. So do the exercises, sleep well, eat well, nourish your body. If you need to rest, this one's something that people don't say. Naps. You're going to need some naps when your nervous system is regulating.
Yeah.
So make some time if you need to take some time off work, or go somewhere if you can, just to be alone with your thoughts. But make sure you have a support system close by too. Don't go completely off the grid if you're in a spiral or anything. Don't do that. But do give yourself the space. And talk honestly with people how you're feeling at that moment. If there are suicidality feelings, make sure you talk to somebody that knows about this, because they will probably have the same feelings, and you'll be able to bond over that feeling, knowing that you're not alone in the situation. Don't feel shame, because there are people that have felt that. That's where you can definitely go off into a deep end if you don't talk about the shame. Guilt can come up too, and those two are the ones that it's better to work through with a support group. I would think, if you follow all those, and get an adoptee community, or even if you're not an adoptee, say you're a biological mother, father, there are groups for those too, adopted parents, anybody with trauma. Find people that know what you're talking about while you're going through it.
Yeah, it's funny you were talking about the solar plexus, because when I am journeying, doing my somatic work, that's where I always feel it, like in my solar plexus, and I always follow whatever that is. But yeah, I always feel like a tightness, like a pulling. I don't know how to explain it, but I can feel it right there in my solar plexus.
Yeah. Well, and your stomach is a bigger brain than our brain. So our feelings go through our stomach. That's why it's there. But in our brain thinks we are our feelings, even though we're not. We're not our feelings. That's not our authentic self. That's not what we're going to find
right.
When we get to our authentic self, that's not it. So
yeah, those are just indicators of maybe something you need to look at. I mean, they're helpful, but definitely, yeah, not part of who you are.
exactly.
So, what advice would you give other adoptees that might face the same thing that you had with your dad? What advice would you give them?
Yeah. Well, we kind of touched on it. Find out your legal rights. Seriously, that one I can't stress enough.
Yeah, or lack of.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. You're right. Yes. Your lack of rights is what I should have said. Yeah. And especially for the older adoptees, you might want to act like every day could be the last day, because you don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't say that to stoke fear. I say that to bring up in you the curiosity and the openness to ask maybe questions that you're afraid to ask. If it's something that you're going to regret, ask the question. Don't let the moments pass and then you go, I wish I would have done that. I should have done that, or whatever. Don't let that be what you think about after they're gone.
Yeah.
And do try to spend the time that you want, because again, it is a process. Do what you're comfortable with, but again, think about what could be, because sometimes it's fear and we just need to get through it, and then sometimes we do need space. So if that is, you truly need space, you need that resting point, do that for yourself.
Yeah.
Pictures, take pictures. If you can visit, go visit. Ask God the DNA questions, the family. Ask those stories about the family, about them. He told me, I forgot to tell you this earlier. He told me a story about, he had a monkey when he was in the military, and he sent me a picture of it, him and the monkey. I was like, I can't remember how he even got it. I was like going, what? How did he get a monkey in the military? Anyway, but he said it was like their little mascot, and it'd take people's cigarettes.
Oh my God.
So he was a character, and I want to remember him, like maybe he was a little bit before I knew him, like being a character.
Yeah. So I want to close because this podcast is all about education, and I'm hoping that, I'm always hoping that people that aren't adopted are listening as well. So what would you like people to know about your experience? And it could be anything about your adoption experience, that you just want the average person to know that they might not know.
Well, I'm going to kind of recap, because I want people to know that adoptees do not have the same rights as anyone else, like we were talking about. There are things that we're just not allowed to do. And then if we do them, it's at great expense to us, like reaching out to family. Not everyone can do that. We have to go through the DNA hoops and things like that. So when we're saying, that we're angry, that is righteous anger, because we don't have the same rights. And that anger is the absolute normal feeling for what we have. So give us a little grace
Yeah.
And hopefully that we will have grace in our response to you also in that moment. And hopefully, eventually, adoptees will have legal rights just like everyone else in all 50 states. Because, yeah, there's still closed adoption and restrictions allowed in like 19 states, 17 states? No, I can't remember.
I know mine's one of them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, think about that. What if you couldn't do that? You can never find your own family. Just put yourself in our place.
Yeah.
It's not like a lot of the movies, well, the baby gets adopted and all of a sudden everything's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just a little love and compassion goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you for coming on today and bringing up this subject. Like I said, I had never even thought about it before it happened to you. And my heart was going out to you because you had 1,000 things going on at the time that you were doing and trying to do, and then going through that. And it was hard to watch you go through that. And like I said, I had never thought about the legality part. And so just thanks for bringing that to the surface for us and sharing that openly with us, your audience, the Adopted Chameleon. So thank you so much
for having me. And if anyone else is going through the same thing, I'm sorry, number one, for your loss. And we can all chat and talk, and we can get through the loss and grief together.
Yeah. So tell us about your social media pages and where people can find you.
Yeah. As we were saying, I'm the Adopted Chameleon on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. I also run the Adopted Chameleons private Facebook group. That's for adoptees and all MPEs, which is misattributed parental event. So if you're a former foster youth or donor conceived, something like that, someone that wasn't raised by your biological family, you can get in there. And I do the Adoptee Connect Tulsa group. And I have a Patreon because, like we mentioned earlier, I'm a Kundalini yoga instructor and Reiki master. You can find all of this information, LorahGerald.com, including this podcast. I will add this to my website. And adoptees and people that love adoptees, our allies. On my page, I have adoptee resources, and there are groups in there for first families, adopted families, adoptees. And if you want me to add something, let me know.
All right, great. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you so much, Lorah, for giving us some food for thought. Maybe something that some of us need to start thinking about if we want to be able to advocate for our biological family. And I just want to thank Lorah for everything she does for the community. And I cannot talk about the Adopted Chameleon page on Facebook enough. It really is a safe place where you are able to express yourself at the same time. And it's my favorite page. It's my favorite page on Facebook. So thanks, Lorah, for having that space for us adoptees. If you would like to come on the podcast, please get in touch with me. You can go to my website, mindyourownkarma.com, or you can email me directly at mindyourownkarma@gmail.com. If you are struggling with stress, anxiety, the primal wound, anything that's keeping you from living life to the fullest, you can go to my Somatic Mindful Guided Imagery page. It is somatichealingjourneys.com, or you can email me directly, somatichealingjourneys@smgi@gmail.com. But on my website, you will find more about me and Somatic Mindful Guided Imagery and what it's all about. You can also schedule a free 15 to 20 minute consultation with me if you want to know more. As always, take what you need and leave what you don't. And always remember to mind your own karma. And I will see you all next time.
This podcast is created for educational purposes by the telling of adoption experiences. The views expressed in this podcast may not be those of the host or Mind Your Own Karma.